Welcome to the Let's Talk podcast, inspired by Mesquite ISD's Leadership and Empowerment Team, or LET for short.
Our guests include educators, students, and community members, sharing their experiences from their perspectives.
So let's have a real conversation about embracing our differences and finding common ground with your hosts, Dr. LaDonna Gully and Ted Madden.
Hello and welcome to episode 26 of the Let's Talk podcast. I knew we could get our guest today because when he was hired at the end of February, I overheard him telling a group of educators, the answer is always yes. I'm always available. So
that's perfect.
I knew I'd get him. Well, so let's get started by introducing ourselves. My name is Ted Madden. I work in the district's communications department, and I'm a 48-year-old white man.
Happy birthday again.
Thank you.
My name is Dr. LaDonna Gully. I am the Director of Leadership and Empowerment for our wonderful district, and I am a 51-year-old African-American woman.
Well, I'm DeMarcus Harris, head football coach, athletic coordinator at Mesquite High, and I'm a 38-year-old African-American male.
Oh, goodness, he's a baby.
It's all relative. It's all relative.
Yeah.
So he came to do the podcast today, and the first thing I saw was the suit, and I was flattered, right?
Yes.
It's like, well, he dressed, and he met the mayor.
Oh.
But I want to start there because I think we do need to get to your background, but just start since you're dressed like that, people can see you on the video. The meeting with the mayor and what your goals were for that meeting.
Well, my meeting with him was just to let him know that we're here to serve the community, our coaching staff, our kids. So whatever they have for us to do, we want to be a part of making Mesquite great. We don't just want to sit in our field house and just win some football games. We want to actually have an impact on the community, help grow kids, and do those things. So.
That is amazing. And I would tell you that there's a lot of work here, a lot of great work here. We have great kids. So I want to welcome you and just maybe start by asking you, please share with us a little bit about your background.
Which part of it?
So, kind of tell us a story. I have to say, I saw the WFAA
Right.
spotlight on you the
Right.
other night, and I was just so impressed. And so that's why I'm so happy that we have him.
Oh, yeah.
So, why don't you just start there? Because I think that, sharing our stories that's so important.
That's right. Well, I had it rough growing up. Well, I say growing up, but it was pretty good, in my early years, and then it turned bad because my mom was on drugs. My daddy was incarcerated. I lived from house to house, friend to friend. My town took care of me. Even the knuckleheads made sure I was doing the right things and wanted me to play sports. And I had a group of friends that kind of drove, and we kind of pushed each other. And a coach told me I needed to take the SAT my sophomore year. I did it, and I scored really high. And my senior year, and they finally let me back on. Of course, I got kicked off of every team, and they finally let me back on for one more year. They gave me one more chance. That was probably the 20th chance, but one more chance to come back and play ball, and it changed my life. I got an academic scholarship to go to Austin College, and which is one of the greatest schools around. When you're talking about different from what I was used to. I was a guy that was out at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning because I didn't have a curfew or anybody to tell me to wake up in the morning. And I wasn't the only one. We had a group of friends. We were all going through the same things.
Right.
But we kind of got up on our own, and we went to school, and we know we were going to get some breakfast and lunch and those things. And it led me to Austin College and playing ball, and coaches saved my life, and teachers saved my life. And now, I get a chance, and here I am sitting in front of you guys, a head football coach at Mesquite High. But I've always dreamed big. I'm super competitive. I think that's what drove me a lot in my life, and I always wanted to be the best at whatever I was doing. So, but I'm just so happy, so thankful. Everything that I went through, I wouldn't really change one thing. I understand grit. I understand never give up. I get it. So. It's just a great time for us.
For people who didn't see the story, I'm the guy that if I want to find something on the internet, I go to Google and I put in the search term. So search for DeMarcus Harris, Mesquite, and you'll see a couple videos. The first one when he was introduced by the school board or approved by the school board to be hired, and then the story we did the other night. And that's the thing. When I met you and I heard about your story, that popped into my head. I got to do a story on him. And the reason is not only what you overcame, but mostly how what you overcame is going to help you now.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So definitely dealing with kids, you have to understand. You have to be caring enough, I'll say understanding enough to know that everything's may not be all good at home. Kid may be going through something. It may be that one day that you get them and it kind of flips the switch and they figure it out. But we're going to bend over backwards for our kids. Now, we're going to coach hard. We don't hold your hand. We're not going to do that at all. But we're going to coach as hard as we can, but we're also going to peel back those layers and figure out what's going on in your life and see how can we help you and assist you and light that fire in you to change. You get a chance to break the curse if you got that generational poverty and you got that somebody going to jail all the time, and you get to break that curse if you get a chance, through football and other sports and those things. And that's what we're here for, to try to just help them figure it out.
Right. And with school, I mean, you break the barrier with school.
That's
and,
right.
The leadership and empowerment team was based on that premise that our goal is to tear down barriers,
Right.
period. And so I know you talked a lot about coaches, but what about your teachers? How do you feel like they really, by them understanding where you were coming from, do you feel like they did? And how did that influence and help you in the classroom?
Oh, definitely. They knew I was going through some things, and they were. Now, also, I could go in class and not, study and make 100 on everything. Just, I don't know why, but again, I was compared. Well, what did you make? 98. Well, I got a 100. So that was always my deal. Really, really good in school all through. My teachers were always there. I have a counselor, Tarla Bates, who helped me with, because they told me I had a scholarship, and I was like, well, I'm not going to school. Not thinking about that. She was like, yes, you are, and so my counselors, and they kind of got together and helped me with my paperwork and FAFSA, and he was the superintendent for Pittsburgh for a while. He came down and said, hey, he was our principal. Hey, if you graduate Austin College, I'll be at your graduation. And I was like, okay. And so just everybody, my senior year, it just seemed like everybody was trying to help. The community was trying to help. I had a mentor, Jim Archer. He was a college professor at Northeast Texas Community College. I had to work for him on Saturdays. That was part of the deal to get back on the team. And it ended up being like just a great relationship. And he taught me about hard work. You're talking about a farm on probably 200 or 300 acres, and I'm digging ditches, and I'm fooling with cattle, and I'm nervous, and I'm doing all those things. But he would pay me in a check every Saturday, and he would buy me lunch. And so and he called me he still calls me now, and he called me all the way through college. He sent me money through college. He helped me get through college. We had just everybody in the town was just reaching out, man, can I help you? My basketball coach took me into the bank and said, hey, can you guys give him a loan? And I still have that relationship with Cypress Bank in Pittsburgh right today. Jan Branch, just the whole community was reaching out and trying to help me, and it was just a good deal, neat deal.
So what, you talked about that upbringing, that background. I think about you as a football coach. You could, if you're a good coach, you can coach anywhere.
That's right.
But you wanted to come to Mesquite, and I don't think Mesquite knew it till they found you, but they need you here. Can you just give me a sense of the opportunities you feel like you're going to help these kids see that a lot of them wouldn't have seen on their own?
Well, that's what it's about too. You get to see me. That you can't really make an excuse of how bad it is. I mean, you can make a movie on how bad I had it, and that's just snippets of things that they've seen from me. But I do not let them make excuses. And then that belief that you can do it, I think that's what we're going to put in our kids. That belief that you play hard, you go hard, you fight, and then we're also going to call you, check on you. Hey man, you okay? What's going on at home? We're gonna know that stuff before you get in our building. We're gonna greet you at the door, greet you on your way in. Hey, what's going on, man? You good? Just figure out what you got going on. Also, I've made a lot of connections with college coaches. I can pick the phone up and call guys at TCU and SMU and Baylor and all these places. Just if our kids need somebody to talk to, or if we got a good kid that can play at those places, that we can give them those opportunities. And that a lot of time that steers a kid in the right direction. Because, hey man, I talked to Baylor last night about you. They want to know what your transcript looks like. Oh, really? Yeah. And Mesquite High is so great that you can change your transcript all year. They give you the opportunity to fix it all year long. That's unheard of. So what a great place, and getting our kids to understand that they have great opportunities here at Mesquite High, and our coaches are here to help them out. I think that's going to be the big deal.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned a little earlier before we started taping that, you were interviewing Mesquite as much as Mesquite was interviewing you. Yeah. And so why did you, at the end of the day, choose Mesquite?
Well, their values, they're about helping people. That's what I'm about. I think that's what this profession is about, serving people, helping people, getting people to the next level. Talking to Coach Groves and Mr. Sarpy, their values and views were just like mine. They believed in the same things. The setup's good here. We just needed somebody to corral them, get the vision, and push it in the right direction. I think we'll be fine. But I felt like this is a place that I want my family to come and be a part of, and want my kids to be a part of Mesquite ISD. So that's why I'm here. Mm-hmm. I've always worked for people, not places. I'm not a big places guy. I'm a big people guy. So if I feel like there's good people, I'm coming.
One thing I've always liked about sports, and we've talked about this on previous podcasts, sports and in war, it gets people together.
That's right.
No matter what your race or background is. And in a lot of ways, it's a meritocracy. That's why I've always liked sports. I think it's a true meritocracy. If you're the best player, you're going to play that position because the coach wants to win. But I'm a white guy. Is it a true meritocracy in your experience as a black athlete and a black coach?
Yes. Well, I'll say a black athlete. Black athletes, I just think athletics is the purest thing left on this earth. I really do, because it doesn't matter. I mean, I get jobs, and I've gotten jobs because I knew people. Athletics is not like that. It's about the work you put in and how good you are. And there's not a lot of things left in this world like that. I mean, even I've gotten jobs because I knew Coach Lynn. Mm-hmm. I got a job because I knew this person, that person. But in athletics, we're going to every day line it up and see what you have and who's the best. And it doesn't matter what background you're from, how your parents are, who your parents are. You get a chance, you get a fresh start, and you get a chance to become whoever you want to. And it's not like that. Now, as a black head coach, it's difficult. I mean, it's difficult to become a head coach and be an African American. A lot of guys feel like they're missed, or they didn't get a chance, or they didn't get an opportunity, or it has to be inner city, or those things. So, but this year has been really, really good for the African American coaches, and I look at it. I feel like I was the best coach. Not African American, any of that, but. It's been a good year for African-American coaches. Richardson Berkner just hired an African-American coach. Arlington Bowie hired an African-American coach. Clarksville, just a lot of places have Mesquite High has traditionally hadn't had an African-American coach that's hired one this year. So I think the opportunities are definitely getting better for African-Americans.
Why do you think it was difficult in the past, though?
I think, I just think the people in charge, people are going to hire people that look like them. And that's just the nature of the beast, and that's how it is. And
that's called bias.
Yeah, it is. It is. It is. But people usually hire people that look like them. Mm-hmm. I think now with Texas High School Coaches Association and the exposure that coaches are getting, all coaches are getting, that. A lot more people are getting opportunities to get those jobs. I mean, I think we have. I'd beg to see it and see somebody's better or it has done anyway. I think we have the most diverse staff in the nation that I just hired. I got a guy, an Asian guy. I got a Hispanic guy. I got a black guy. I got white guys. I got old guys, young guys. I mean, you got all different religions. So I think, and I felt like that was, of course, it was my plan because I wanted to put as many different people in front of our kids as I could to see just life can be whatever you want. You can have all these differences and it still works out for you.
You know, that brings us to a topic we've also talked about. What haven't we talked about?
I know.
About the best person for the job.
We have had that conversation.
Does race sometimes have to play a part into making you the best candidate? And so you're talking about deliberately hiring a diverse staff. So is each of these guys the best guy for the job? You know what I mean?
Yes. And that's definitely, with me, I've always been friends with everybody. And so I know they're the best guy for the job, and they just happen to be, we just happen to be diverse. You know, it's got all this diversity. And they're great coaches, and they're great men that we get to put in front of our kids every day. So, but I always wanted a diverse. I just think it's good for our kids. So.
Yeah, I think
that's
it's
a big
good.
deal.
Yeah, I do too. I think it's really important. And you mentioned earlier how, sometimes you just, and I think that it is such an unconscious bias, right? Yeah. It's definitely implicit. When we talk about implicit bias very specifically, the one that I thought and came to mind was automatically similarity bias. And that is when you hire people who are just like you, like, my gosh, they're just like me. They go to church.
Great. But it starts with that. I'm so great. Why wouldn't I hire somebody like
that? Right.
Exactly, right? And yet there sometimes really actually you don't need that. You actually need someone who is the absolute opposite of you, or you need someone who has a different background or a different experience, because that is going to ultimately not only be the best, but it's also going to add the value that you're trying to get to and achieve as an organization. So, I really can appreciate that. And I think that, it is just really important. But talk to us a little bit about how race and being a coach, and also just, how does that play, in your everyday when you're getting out with your kids? That I know you're not necessarily thinking about it, but when your kids are looking at you, they're thinking about it.
Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of the stuff that, a lot of things I get a chance to talk to our kids about, I can relate to. And so that's been good too, that I can pull them to the side and we can have a conversation about, man, this is why we're doing it the way we're doing it. The responses in our program is yes sir, no excuses. And yes, ma'am, no excuses. I said, you look at what happened in Minneapolis this week, and I said, if the kid says yes sir, no sir, or yes ma'am, no ma'am, maybe he's still alive. And I said, you get a chance to go home. We don't have to go off or do those things. You get a chance to go home with yes sir, no excuses. And our kids, it really resonated with our kids, and they were like, okay, I get it. And I said, and that's why we do it the way we do it. That's why we respond the way we respond. I think we got to teach them all those things, and we got to be open about those things too. It's real. Those things are happening. So, just race and it's a crazy world that we live in, and we just want to make sure our kids are doing the right things all the time. So, and then we do feel like we got to be better and doing things right all the time, which is okay with me.
Well, I would say this. I just want to add that, we want our kids to do a great job, and we want them to make really great decisions. And I also want the adults to as well.
That's right.
I think that's really important, that adults are making really great decisions, and that they're not allowing biases to come into to play, because bias is really a fear. It's a fear. It is a stereotype that you have conjured up, and you're using that to then make a decision, and then in fact create an action that will have an ultimate reaction, and that definitely could be positive and or negative.
That's right.
So, yeah.
One of the questions we discussed bringing up with you, Coach Bragg told me about it, and I don't know what it's still like in Pittsburgh, Texas, which is about 2 hours east of us here. But he told me it was the weirdest thing. When he went to coach in East Texas for 2 years, on the home side or the visitor side, all the white fans sat in one area and the black fans sat in a different section. It's still like that as far as you know?
It is.
And why is that?
Man, Pittsburgh it's that, man, it's de facto racism. You just get it, And then now me, I'll go anywhere. It doesn't matter to me. So I had friends from both sides, but it's literally a train track that separates this side of town from that side of town. And that's always been the struggle in Pittsburgh when you get a job. If you can't bring those two communities together, you're not going to be successful. Then one side's going to run you out of town. But, I remember when Coach Brad came in, we sat on the bus, white, black, white, black, white, black, white, black, right, on the bus. So, but it's like that. It's not as bad as it was when I was in school, but it's that de facto racism that's happening. That you stay on this side of town and we stay on that side of town. But me, and one of my good friends is Kurt Ross, and he's Bo Pilgrim's nephew. So, and it doesn't matter to us. And on that football team, it really didn't matter. Mm-hmm. But around the town, it mattered.
Wow. So as we move forward, I want to ask you, what do you think of Mesquite so far?
Oh, Mesquite's a great place, great people. I'm excited. I woke up at 4 this morning, and I couldn't wait to get to work and just be around just good people. And I'm a new head coach, and I feel like that they want me to be successful. Mesquite wants me to be successful. Yes. And it's not one of those I got you places or we gave you the job so we can see you fail. You got this job and we want to see you win. So I've been really appreciative of that. Everybody's helpful. Principal's great. Cody's great. You guys are great. The community's just, I'm all out in the community all the time. I was out a couple Saturdays ago. I went to all the barbershops and just sat down and talked to kids and parents and people coming in, because the barbershop's a great place to just talk about life, man, just what's going on in Mesquite. And I just want them to know that I want them to be a part, and this is their team too. So I want them to be proud of us. So
we're going to move on to our last two segments of the show. We're going to skip the Let's Ask a Question segment this week.
Yes.
But you can always email us at letstalk@mesquiteisd.org. And we're going to call this a TED Talk sidebar. And I want to talk about privilege. And it's because the term white privilege can get so many people wound up. But it's important to remember that privilege comes in countless forms. And I'll talk about some of my privileges. My parents were married as I was growing up, and they still are. Both my parents are educators, so education was important during my upbringing. Most of my college was paid for, and when I graduated, my parents put some money in my bank account, which allowed me to follow my dream career, even though my first job as a TV sportscaster paid only $13,000 a year. And I want to take a moment on this point. I definitely set myself apart as a young 22-year-old aspiring TV journalist because I was willing to move halfway across the country to Kalispell, Montana, when a lot of my classmates weren't. I was willing to work for $13,000 a year when a lot of my peers weren't. I sent 50 resume tapes out to TV stations all over the country, and I was rejected 49 times, but I kept at it. And I worked hard to turn that one opportunity into a successful career. But I had some tailwinds behind me with my upbringing, education, no student debt, and other factors. There are also ordinary privileges or everyday privileges, as Dolly Chugg wrote about in her book, The Person You Mean to Be, a book that Dr. Rivera introduced us to when he was on the podcast. Ordinary privilege means you're able to forget part of who you are on a daily basis. So for us here on the podcast, that's like using all 5 of our senses, being able-bodied and without mental disability, being Christian, being straight and not gay, things we take for granted. Most people are these things, so you're not constantly reminded about it. But it's important to remember for the sake of the people who constantly have to think about the fact that they're blind or deaf, that they live life in a wheelchair, that they're not Christian, or that they're gay. My personal privileges, these ordinary privileges, are obvious to me, and that brings us back to white privilege. And maybe the word privilege is what triggers people, but it's really no different than saying, I've been blessed, or I've been very fortunate or lucky. And being white is an ordinary privilege in our predominantly white culture. I don't think about it every day, But for me not to acknowledge the fact that being white in this country has been advantageous to me would be disingenuous. I don't feel the need to apologize for it, but it doesn't take anything away from me to acknowledge it. And I think this is a good time for both of you to talk from your perspectives about how often you're reminded about being Black every day.
I'm reminded every day. And it can be in just a very simple walk in a grocery store. It can be me walking in a high-end shopping store. It can be me even walking in a particular neighborhood, depending on where I am in the city. And so I am constantly sometimes reminded, even when I don't want to be. An example of that was just this past Saturday. Myself and a friend went out to dinner in a very nice restaurant in Uptown and sat down. And we were asked to sit at this very small seating area. But there was lots of traffic, and it was literally right next to the kitchen area. And so, of course, we declined, and the young lady put us somewhere else, the host did. But I would tell you, we sat there about an hour and 20 minutes, and during that time, we noticed 3 other couples, Black, all were regarded to that particular area first. And then once they declined, they were sent somewhere else. And I remember at one point, after the second set of couple kind of walked by, I kind of said, okay, so let me glance at this room, because maybe I just thought for a minute, well, maybe it's just all Black people coming in here. And then I turned around, I was like, no, I mean, there's a little bit of everybody in here, but I made that distinction. And really, literally, my friend said to me, isn't that your research? They said to me, that's right. Yeah, isn't that your research? And I was like, oh, my research in action, right? And so we did. The manager happened to just come over. Hey, how was your meal? I said, my meal was great, but let me share something with you. And I stopped to talk to him I said, I think you have a bias issue, and I really want you to check your bias. And so, of course, as a great manager would, they begin to tell you about, how they've gone through bias training, and, they were very aware. And I said, you know what, I understand that, but I'm telling you what I've just observed. And I know that's not coincidental. I do believe that it is unconscious, but I'm taking this opportunity to share with you that I want you to be aware that I am aware. And because I am aware, I want you to be aware. And he literally made a beeline from my table to the hostess to say, this has just been noticed about how you're doing this. And I think I'm sure she was young. She probably was shocked. But I wanted him to understand that, yeah, everyone's watching you. Everyone is watching. And you just don't get to do whatever you used to do. You need to be aware. So that is just my experience. What is yours, Coach Harris?
And I every morning, I fear for my kids. What could happen with my kids being in a neighborhood or getting pulled over or at a certain place that they're going to be treated differently. And when I pass a police officer, it changes who I am. I tighten up and I'm sure a lot of our, Mr. Madden, I'm sure you probably don't feel that way, but
I don't.
It definitely changes the way we as we're riding down the highway and what we think about our kids. But I tell a lot of my coaches and my guys all the time, like, man, I'm afraid for my kids. Like I am. Just one wrong move or they do the wrong thing. Or if they do one thing, it may be over. They can't come back from it, and
so true.
That's probably my biggest fear, that our kids and kids that look like me, they make one mistake and it's over, or they get pulled over by a cop and they're treated differently. And you get a lot of that in East Texas for sure. Mm-hmm. But that's probably my fear. But, you wake up every morning and you realize, man, the first thing you're going to see when you look at somebody is color. That's just the way it is. That's just, I'm sorry, that's what it is. And that's when the biases start. So that's always been one of my things in class. Like man, you're acting white. I said, well, what's that? Or you're acting black. Well, what's that?
Mm-hmm.
You know, explain to me, well, you painting yourself? Because there's, you know, you're putting people in boxes. We all do it. We put them in boxes, and this is how somebody that is white is supposed to act, somebody that's black is supposed to act, and somebody that's Asian is supposed to act. That's not how it should be.
Absolutely. That's exactly what it's not supposed to be. You know, at the end of the day, we're human. And I think that our framework that we've adopted within our district, the framework for equity, really does talk about that high level of understanding. And when we, you know, dignity is something that is inherent. It's not something that we have to earn. And when we do this and we do it effortlessly, everyone is honored as a result of it. And you begin to get different results, and you begin to have different relationships with people. And the way you see the world, you know, the world is such a beautiful place.
It is.
We have to become beautiful in that place as well.
It's a great place to finish. I wish I didn't have to say anything, but I got to put the bow on this thing. Nice job, Dr. Gully. Coach, thanks for coming in.
Appreciate you guys.
You're just one of those guys. We can talk for hours every time.
Sir.
Appreciate you coming in and being so open with us.
Oh, yeah. Anytime.
Yeah, thank you.
And you can always join the discussion by emailing us at letstalk@mesquiteisd.org or find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram using the search term LetMISD. Thank you for listening, and let's talk again next week.